Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the lateness of the hour and the lateness of us coming on. Had a lot of issues going on as we tried to get on here tonight. I try very hard on Thursdays to not be so late because there are other people who podcast, and I know you guys have other things that go on. And so I try to get on, but we had a major update that had to be done to the computer that, well, it didn't have to be done, but the computer decided that it wanted it to be done at that time. So it did what it wanted to do, and it finally finished itself. If I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. This is the Erudition Network. This is the Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge Session. We are on here every Thursday talking about Black history, talking about knowledge, and trying to provide knowledge and understanding on things that we don't often, or maybe we haven't gotten in school, that hasn't been shared with us, and to be able to further our knowledge on who we are, where we come from as a culture. This program is on every Thursday to provide that. It is a labor of love, and I take that time to do that. My name is Eddie Phillips. As I said, but I am well-studied public historian, and I welcome every Thursday questions and comments and opines about our history and who we are. So I welcome you to get into the chat and to talk and let us know what's going on. Hey, Facebook user, I don't know who you are. Sometimes it blocks off, so please let us know if you're a first-time watcher or someone new to the program or someone who we know. All right. But as I said, we're here tonight. I did not. Sometimes, what is this? My wife. Oh yes, this is my son's doing. My son is fanatical about Christmas. Fanatical. And I love it in him. He loves this season, and he put that up. I saw it when I walked over here to the back of me. So, but good on him. Jesus, the reason for the season, as we say. So I do appreciate him doing that. But yes, we're getting into the Christmas spirit. All right. So it's a couple of you in here, and I don't want to belabor. We're late as it is, and I don't want to belabor too much, but I didn't know what we were going to talk about tonight. Sometimes that happens. I just don't have a time to figure out where it is I want to go. And I asked in our Facebook group to many of you, whatever, something that maybe you were curious about in Black history that you wanted us to go over tonight. I opened up the floor. I actually opened up the floor to people who may have wanted to come on and discuss it face to face, or camera to camera, as it may be, these things. But I didn't get any responses back on it. So we're gonna really freehand it tonight. Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year. It is. It really is. It is something to be loved. It gives you great memories of being with family, friends, and others. So something that is greatly, greatly, greatly beloved. I I don't know. I don't know what. Oh, what I will say. Let me say this before I go further. I had a situation over the last few weeks with our mail, and it kind of angered me because my mom, I turned 50 years old um, at the end of November, and my mother um, happened to be. I think she said she was at Dr. King's birthplace, and she basically messaged me, got in contact with me, and asked me if I wanted. She was some books that she saw. If I wanted books, and my mother knows I love books, and my mother is the first person to ever support my book habit. So she and her friend Denise, Denise went down and they actually got me some books, and I'm so appreciative because I've been reading these books off and on over the last few days that I've been able to get it, but it took so long to get here. We had problems with the mail server. This mail server has an issue, and I wasn't able to get the books as quickly as I wanted to. But I wanted to share with you the books that she got me. Um, this one book, Simple Justice, is the history of Brown versus Board Education. This is very important right now, as we've had so many things attacking affirmative action and certain laws that were put in place during the civil rights movement. Um, but this book here by Richard Kluger is a really good book because what it does is it gives the research and the background. Um, Pastor Gibson, I'm happy to see you. Yeah, I know you're getting ready to go on. We got on late tonight, but I thank you. I thank you so much, Pastor Gibson, for being here with us for the little bit of time. I know you got it. You got your show coming up here, and I want people to really support him. He's a really great friend of the network. Your favorite time of the year? Yeah, presents are always a favorite of folks. Eric, I saw you were in here. Simple Justice. Simple Justice. To get a book like this is very big. I'll let you know right now, um, but to get this book that has interviews and talks, it's about a 800-page book, but it is dynamic. And I wanted to say to my mom, thank you, thank you, thank you. To my mom's friend, my Denise, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you so much for this. This is a really great book. I've really enjoyed it. I'm probably like 50 pages into it right now, but really good book. But she didn't stop there. I had a book several years ago that when I was on a ship and I lost the book, or it may have been borrowed and taken and somebody never gave it back. But it was one of my favorite books. It's called A Testament of Hope. And what it is all the essential writings of Martin Luther King Jr., right? Writings and speeches. And I would suggest this should be something that everybody should own so that you don't get a misconception on who Dr. King was as a civil rights leader, as a man of God, as a father, as a person. Sometimes I think we make people out to be these huge figures in history, and we don't really touch to who they are, who they were as a person. These kinds of books, their own writings, their own thoughts, their own letters allow you to kind of get in the mind of people and understand what their purpose was, what their faith was, why they did what they did, and why they made certain choices. Dr. King, as you read this book, you will learn how much of an amazing individual that he actually was. He was he was an amazing man of God. So many things have been said about him that are untrue. So many things have been said about him that that are true, but don't have the depth of understanding. So I recommend this book. I think it's just been revisioned. I couldn't find it for some years, and I was just so happy that my mother and my aunt Denise were able to get this. This was such a blessing to me. Again, a very large book, up around 700 something pages, and I'm probably like 100 pages into this right now. just getting back and rereading it. But that's for the books. I have so many books and so many things I read, and sometimes I'm reading books at the same time. But I wanted to put that out here to you all, as this is a program that really focuses on our history, but also on how we can attain that history and share it with others. So the books and things that I bring up on this program, I bring it up, my wife brings up on her program. We bring those up because we want you to grow your knowledge outside of just what you hear from us. We can help you in guiding you, but we want you to grow your knowledge. And I also want you to fact check. If I say something on this program historically, and you find it to not be accurate, right? I want you to pull that out and say, hey, Eddie, I was reading this, right? This is primary history, it's secondary history. No one is infallible, but that is how we learn. That is how we grow. That is how we talk about these subjects and we learn these things. So I really, really want you to do that. I don't know if anybody has any questions tonight. Any questions on history? Any questions that just are itching at you? I know, like Pastor Gibson has to leave. He has a program, but if you ask it, I promise you, we will answer it. If we don't answer it immediately, we'll answer it in chat. We will get back with you. But whatever question that you have, drop that at us. Let us know, so we can start talking about these things. I will tell you one of the things that I've encountered recently. I had the conversation with you all last week about we were talking about Reconstruction, and we were talking about how we are almost in a second Reconstruction, because what we're seeing play out in society is kind of bad, right? We're seeing a lot of revisiting of racism, racist attacks, people denying folks their rights based on some racist or bigoted notion, particularly in the areas of color. And so we talked a lot last week. I got into the Reconstruction issue about how all of that went down. But when you look at, people will argue with you about Reconstruction, rather it be from 1863, right? Because they believe that Lincoln had a plan, right? He was reelected, in 1864, but Lincoln had a plan. But he was killed in 1865. So arguably, people will tell you that Reconstruction is from a period of 1863 to probably about 1877. However, as we go into the middle part of that, as we go past that, and because we talk about the compromise that happened, it's a very, very short amount of time. It's a very, very short amount of time. And so I think that we're seeing that again. If you look at the incident that happened on January 6th, where people stormed the Capitol, the Senate and the Congress, right? And you think back to where the nation was post-Civil War. Lincoln had what he called a 10% plan, where he wanted to basically offer pardons to Confederates who swore their allegiance back to the United States. And a lot of people did that. And what it did is it allowed, but Lincoln died, Lincoln was killed. So a lot of the things put into place by Andrew Johnson, his vice president who later became president, was not only to allow these people to swear allegiance, but keep the property that they had, keep their positions. And it reminded me the other day, as I was sitting here thinking about how even some of the people who stormed Congress, though there are some who have gone to jail, some of the ringleaders who had the money and the power to support this, we haven't seen them touched, right? And they're going back to doing exactly what they were doing, promoting and financing racist and bigoted and ignorant views a lot of times that help to divide this country. So when I say that we're back into another reconstruction period, I'm saying that based on history. Based on history. Tony Briscoe, my brother, good to see you. Good to see you. Pastor Gibson, yeah, I try to challenge myself. You have covered this, but what's the best right to research Africans who were already living here prior to the Mayflower? So what I would tell you to do is first start, right, with who sanctioned people to come over here. You have to go back and study our history, our African history. There are great authors. Lerone Bennett Jr. was one. He wrote Before the Mayflower. There are great historians. Dr. John Henry Clark. I forget. I'll get an actual name of a book for you. I know it's probably on my desk. He's another one to read. And looking at where we were and who we are and how we got here. The first place to start, Tony, is to go look for those histories, right? And then look at those histories so that you can find out who these ancient societies were. You know, you bring up a good point, because I had a person recently who told me that, Eddie, you talk about the Phoenicians as if they were Black. And I posted something the other day because Denzel Washington's getting ready to do a movie where he plays Hannibal Barca. And people in Tunisia were getting upset because they're like, oh my God, because there's a lot of racism going on in Tunisia right now. And I don't know if anybody really is aware of the amount of racism that is in that area of the world. But there is a lot of racism going on in Tunisia, and it's anti-Black. The problem with a lot of the things going on in some parts of Africa is it is better for Africans to claim to be of another culture, rather they are of a Mediterranean descent or they are from a Muslim Islamic descent. They think that that's better than saying that they are African. The historian, what's his name? It's a book. Henry Louis Gates. And I believe it's in this book. He talks about it too. This is another great book, 100 Amazing Facts about the Negro, about Black people. Great book. But he did a documentary a couple of years ago talking about going to talk to people. And I think I shared a clip of it once here before, where people feel they laugh with the idea of being African. So the first thing, getting back to what you're saying, Tony, the first thing we have to do, right, is know who and where we come from. Go study African history. Go study about those kingdoms, right? Go figure out who these people were, what they were. The kingdoms of Kush, right? Understand where are the Sumerians. Go study about the Phoenicians. Go study about the people who made their way into the Levant. And once you get to know these areas of the world, these ancient histories, right? Then you will start to see that many times in their history, they talk about their journeys. And then you align those things with what the Europeans have told you. See, the Europeans have told us that Prince Henry the Navigator was the one that made the first journey around Africa. And we know that that is a lie, that there was a Venetian named Hanno who actually did that, and that Prince Henry the Navigator used his records on how to navigate around Africa. We know that there was major trade in the Red Sea, right? That went on. We know that established cultures, we know from the Bible that the Queen of Sheba and all of these people learned about even Solomon by what was being bought around as people sailed around Africa and through parts of Africa and trade. So learning our culture, our African culture first, from the walk of man all the way to when Africans started to journey out, is important. And then you will know that the Phoenicians sailed to Britain. Then you will know that the Phoenicians sailed to the middle of the Atlantic. Then you will know that they had maps of the coast of what we call the New World when the Europeans came. Then you start to learn how much we have influenced life on this side of Africa. You will start to see how close Africa actually is to South America, and why it makes sense that the Taino people could know that Africans had came over and talked about how they showed them how to make gold and things like that. You will also note that when Columbus came over, the people who were with him who spoke different African dialects were able to talk to the Taino because of the similarity in some of the dialect. So that's how you study. You have to go through it systematically, but you can get there. Yeah, Ted, I just went through that. I mean, I think that the connection really comes down to what people were allowed to get away with, right? See, the ringleaders, the people that got there before, right, who finance all this, those are not the people that's going to jail, right? And you will find that as you go through looking through Reconstruction. The ringleaders of the Civil War, the Confederates and people like that, they didn't really suffer, right? They didn't really suffer. They went right back to getting exactly what it is that they wanted, right? They went right back to having a regular life. You know, even if you look at like Jefferson Davis, right? He wrote books. He has books you can go find that he defends what he did in the civil with the Confederacy. He talks about how it was a financial necessity. It was all about his money, right? There were a lot of things that were done and a lot of people that kept a lot of money, right? Post the Civil War. And so there's a lot of people after January 6th or anything like that, these uprisings, they get what they want. They're playing chess. They get what they want. Now, the other comparison to that is that we get to a point then where once we can't politically push or force a country to do something, right? Then what we do is we go out and we make we institute violence. We institute violence. People forget that the Klan was not around, right, during slavery. The Ku Klux Klan wasn't around during slavery. Nathan Bedford Forrest, who founded that first Klan, right, he was a Civil War general, cavalry general. And because his unit was so respected and his name carried so much respect, right, he was able to start this, to really put a face to this terrorist group. And the idea of that, right, that the country, we forget the country had to pass something called the Ku Klux Klan Act. So when someone tells you there's no ability to fight racism, Ulysses S. Grant sent federal troops down to the South. He sent federal troops down to the South. And it wasn't until the Hayes-Tilden Compromise of 1877 where the Army was basically forced to stop their intervention in the South. But before that, they were able to destroy it, to meet that force with force. We don't have that right now. Who's standing up when black men are running through the woods saying that someone has said they're going to kill them? Who's standing up when we're hearing all of these reports of racial attacks? It's almost become commonplace to a lot of us, and we all say, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's part of course. We could expect this. We shouldn't be expecting this. So I hope that answers that question for you. Yeah, I have the book also called History of the Jews. I haven't gotten into it yet, but did notice it in the shelf in the book of, yeah, the book of Eli. No problem. But those are good questions. Everybody keep on asking your questions. Fighting racism would be hard today. Have to start with classism. See, here's the thing. Money is always a part of this. However, I would actually state to you, as I've said many times on this program, that we can't deny, and I know many of us want to, because the society has told us to some extent. But we can't deny the function of race as an established system, right, for the better part of over 1,000 years. We can't deny it. It is a part of the world. This teaching and this function of a stratified society. You know, I was explaining to my son the other day what I mean by stratified, because what I think happens a lot of times is that I'll use a word that I don't think I give the full context. So I want you to understand what I mean by stratified. It's arranged in layers, in a strata, right? And basically what we're doing is we're having people on top of people. And at the top of this stratified society, for the better part of 1,000 years, have been anyone who is European, Anglo-Saxon, white. That is not made up. That's just factual history. That's how it has been designed. Everybody's history is basically taught to you through the lens of the European. Go pick up any history book. Go pick up any of your kids' history books. It's told through the eyes and the lens of the European. And everybody has to fall in line under the European. Well, in a stratified situation, that creates pressure at the bottom, because they're doing it whatever they want to do, and they're taking over different things, and they're saying they did this in history, and they're doing things in history, and the brown, black, yellow, they're all catching hell as it pushes down with wars, controversies, political movements, all of these different things, kingdoms, monarchies, the world wars that we've had, all of that pushing creates ruptures. In the world, we call it earthquakes, right? It causes things to break up. It can't deal with the pressure. And that is what happens over time. That's why we have wars. That's how we have conflicts. We have to address that stratified racial mentality. And we got to be honest with that mentality. Because it's not necessarily about classism or money. It's about this recognized idea we're at the top and everybody is at the bottom. That's what it is. Well, we don't appreciate the gifts. You know, I was telling you all last week, W.B. Du Bois's book, another great book to get, right? Talking about the gifts of Black folks, what they did, what they provided, what they still provide. It was the Black enslaved person that created the idea of democracy. It was the Black enslaved person, right, that showed what it meant to transfer from the idea of privilege, because that's what people thought democracy was. And I don't think many of us understand that. We see democracy, when I say democracy, good evening, Facebook users. Hey, Facebook users, if I don't know who you are, hey, just drop your name in there, man, so I can at least be addressing you. Good evening to you. Here's the thing. Democracy, hey, John, good to see you, man. And I know I've told you this before. Democracy to the old European world simply meant transfer of privilege, power. Privilege and power. I'm going to make you a duke. I'm going to make you a mayor. I'm going to make you a sheriff. I'm going to give you a position that is not necessarily equal to mine, but will allow you to play into the system that I created, into the stratified system that I created, where you are still part of the upper strata. But here's the thing. It was Black people, enslaved Blacks, and I dare I even include indigenous people, right, that changed the mentality of that. You're talking about people who had a society who thought that they had a divine right to wealth, to kingdom, to industry, to everything. They felt that they owned it. But this non-intelligent, passive, feeble-minded, this is what they called us, right? Beings, the savages they called the indigenous, they brought a different understanding. Benjamin Franklin said that you could look at the Iroquois and look at how tribal councils, how they were done, that they should modify their political ideas on that. The Africans bought the idea of freedom, equality for everybody. Without that, you wouldn't have had suffrage movements, temperance movements. Without that, you wouldn't have the labor movements that you have here, where people feel that they need to be treated equally because they came from societies that did not see it that way. They saw it as a right to wield divine wealth given by God. America cannot be a free republic. Right? That's it. I saw what you have here, but because here's the thing. You made promises. Oh, you may not have meant those promises. It might have been like a lover that you're trying to seduce, but you made promises. As Dr. King said, that you have to hold up to. We're going to force you to hold up to your promise. That is why the African Americans' gift to this country is not fully spoken about, not given its full credit. Without the crying of our ancestors, without their push for democracy, you cannot look at it without referencing Black people. The democracy that was established, as W.B. Du Bois said, right, was not designed to be a democracy for the masses of men. That they didn't make it. The founding fathers didn't have that idea. It was our ancestors that forced, through the fact of the Civil War, through the fact of being freed, they made it inevitable. They made you have to look at the fact of how you treat a human being. And how are you going to wholly accept treating a human being as something less at the bottom of the strata? So it is important that we understand that gift of our ancestors. Those are good points to make. What'd you say here, Eric? I wish we could recreate it. We lost the meaning of democracy somewhere. No, it was never about the way that it was written. It was never about what the democracy that you think it is. That wasn't established by them. It is why Abraham Lincoln, right, made the point to say that this country needed a rebirth, a new understanding. It is the reason why the Gettysburg Address addresses that. Anybody else? Anything else? This is a good interactive session. Anything? Anyone? Why can't we just get along as Americans like other countries get along together? But other countries don't get along. This nuance of and this is one of the reasons. That's a good question, Tina. It's an absolutely profound question. They don't get along. And America has either been the instigator or the accomplice in some things that are really, really atrocious. When the Nazis were killing Jews, European Jews, when they got to Nuremberg, they said, "Hey, we did it because you were doing it. We just took it to another level." The things that are going down in South America, why people are leaving areas like Venezuela, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile. The reason why they're rushing they're making these long quests to get here to America is because of our failure and sometimes our complicity in going down there and affecting their economies. Because post World War II, as we went into the Cold War, it was the fear that communism was going to spread. So we created the division down there. We put up puppet governments. We did things that we shouldn't have done, that we now admit to, but the cause and effect, the effect is still being done. Every other month. France has always been a mess. The American dollar seems to really be suffering from the increase in division over the last. The American dollar has always been trumped up since World War II on the idea that America is a democracy and a superpower and a bastion of fair play in the world. But I am a believer that God will not be mocked, and that what we do in the dark will eventually come to the light. And we're starting to see with things like BRIC and other things that it has come to the light. The shady things we do, and we have this mental. They've conformed us and conditioned us in this society to see it as a Democrat or a Republican. But in the heart of it, they're all making decisions that affect our status in the world. And they agree on more things than they disagree as it pertains to some parts of the world. That's really what it comes down to. What do you think about the new technology will affect our near future? Well, I think that technology, as a techie, I will tell you, I think that technology will greatly affect us. It's already doing it. We are at a position right now where I'm talking to you right now on a podcast from Colorado, right? To people all over, whoever wants to watch it all over the world. Technology is going to greatly expand our ability to reach people everywhere. And the closest caves of Venezuela and hidden parts of Chad or Niger, you're going to have people who will be able to communicate. And it has to happen. We can communicate in a way that no time in human history have we ever been able to communicate like that. The people who left from Africa, who went into the Levant, who eventually made their way all the way east, right? Or even as far as Australia, right? And New Zealand, had no way, right, to communicate again with those people who they had left in the areas of Ethiopia, Somalia, Egypt. But now we can do that. It also expands the idea of how we can go back and find and trace history more accurately. We can actually now go in and go read ancient texts and align those texts, right, to what really happened. Not what someone said happened. We can translate it in real time. We can go in and read these things and understand what Herodotus was saying, right? What Anabasis was saying. We can go in and read these historians' documents, and as I was telling Tony earlier, and then align them and realize where the lies and the fallacies have been given to us, because there are a lot of them. People told us lies to keep us away from wanting to even know our history. If I was telling somebody the other day, when you pick up a history book, that I had one sitting right next to me, and you pick up a history book, and I was telling my father, I said, we sit here and we allow feelings now. Feelings are okay now. Feelings of being denigrated and feelings of being told something that hurts your feelings, it's okay now. But if you were to go look at even you older folks who are out here, people who have gotten out of school, if you remember going and picking up your first history book, and in your first history book, they showed you people who, as they were coming, they gave you the Darwinism, right? Darwinian idea of how man moved and everything else, and how Australopithecus and Polydipicus and all this other stuff, and how all of these people, these beings migrated. And you go through that. And then they start talking about European societies. They start talking about European societies being something advanced. They may sometimes go into the indigenous over here in North America. They may talk about the savage in Africa, but they were always savages. They were always walking around with a stick. They were always walking around looking half human. But when they got to the European, right? When they got to the European, what he looked like was sophisticated. He looked like a modern man or woman. And they told you all things about them. They told you about their kingdoms, their monarchies. They told you about the things that they discovered. They told you about from the Romans, from the Greeks, how they were intelligent, how they were geniuses, how they came up with these theories and all of these things. But you only saw the savage or the infidel when you saw the indigenous or the African. They didn't talk to you about how people came out of ancient Africa and went into Syria, Mesopotamia, Assyria. They don't talk to you about the Hittites. They don't talk to you about all of these cultures that influenced those very people who they trump out to be geniuses. They don't tell you that. And then when you see someone that looks like you, it's a picture of somebody either getting a whip to their back or in chains. And nobody cared about us having feelings, feeling hurt by that, feeling maligned by that. No one considered your feelings of being seen as something to beat, whip, or harm. But now, when we say we want to teach Black history, now, when we say we want to teach accurate history, the first thing we hear people say, right, is, oh my God, it's going to make our kids feel bad. That's going to make us feel bad. They don't tell you about the gold import from Africa. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that the Europeans got knowledge and understanding of what gold was over here from the Africans, who were then being enslaved, going back to the East during the Muslim slave trade, which was earlier and longer than the triangle slave trade. None of this is shared with us because here's the thing. It's not important for you to know that you're more than something. It's only important that we teach you that your ancestors were servants, subservient. None of this is played out. And even as you get to the industrial age, even as you get to the time of machines, and you see Black people who were building these machines, who helped build the railroad, you saw something else. You saw something else, something savage, something scary. And it exists today. I showed you all, matter of fact, I think I have those pictures right now. I showed you all some of the pictures that were used, right? That were used, and how people would say things. And how they would talk about us. I'm gonna pull those pictures up because I think we need to touch on them again. But I say all this to say that here we are in a situation where none of these things are new. None of these things are new. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't know the history behind a lot of them. So we continue down the path. I hope you're getting something from the night. As I said, I didn't know. I had no idea what we would talk about tonight. But I am very happy with the way the session is going. Um, I'm really happy with you all's questions and the things that you're providing here. Let me open up some of this stuff for you guys. I want you to see this when I'm talking about. My wife always tells me that visuals are important um, to let people see. I kind of went away from some of the visuals because we were having problems with the internet, but now, so here's one right here, right? If you look at all of this stuff, right? Um, you see between 1650 and 1860, approximately 10 to 15 million enslaved people were transported, right? Moved over. And they show you this thing about how tobacco, coffee, cotton, sugar, mining, rice, all of this stuff. If you are a child going through school and someone says, well, what came out of the dark continent? Because that's what they called it, Africa. And you say, well, slaves. Slaves. And I think that that's a problem, right? But this is what our kids are taught. Let's look at another picture here. When we talk about the images that were shared, this is all in one of my slide banks here. Let's see if I can share it. These are the images that were put into newspapers, into early documents, into books. You know, I was telling my son, I said, when you read Tarzan and Tarzan's introduction to himself in the book is, I'm Tarzan, the nigger killer. But Tarzan's in our movies. Tarzan is a thing that continually seems to show up every couple of years. There's always a Tarzan movie made because there had to be a white man in the jungle to fight the savage, right? These images, these things that still stick with us. This is the last one I'll share. I remember this one. This right here. This was an advertisement in 1765. It says it ran away from the printing office at Saturday night, a servant man named George, because everybody's name was George, by the trade a bookbinder between 25 and 26 years old, 5 feet 5 inches high, very thick, hoops much, and has a down look. Flops much, I'm sorry, and has a down look. He's a little pock-pitted, has a scar on one of his temples. He is much addicted to liquor, very talkative when he's drunk, and remarkably stupid. He had on and carried away with him several good white linen shirts, a snuff-colored cloth coat, and a suit of light-colored saggety. Other good wearing apparel, a half-cut black bob wig, and a set of silver buckles. Whoever apprehends the servant and conveys him to the printing office of Virginia shall have £5 reward, and if taken out of colony, £10 beside what the law allows. And here we are right here. If you read this, I remember when I came across this, I said, if you read this, this almost sounds like some of the stuff we get when we get these cases of police abuse, right? I saw a black man around a certain age, about 5 feet 5, black, dark, and now we're gonna stop everybody. How many black men were stopped and grabbed? How many enslaved people and some freemen may have been accosted because you look like George? This is the foolery. This is the foolery. And unfortunately, we have so much of it. So much of it. Anybody else got any other questions tonight? Anybody? Anybody? Nothing? All right. We got about 5, 6 minutes. I'm gonna thank you all. If you don't have anything else, for the interaction tonight. I appreciate it. Um, it makes these sessions go by so much better. And unfortunately, tonight I just did not have time. Things go on in my life uh, to really get a lesson here tonight. So, but I am very happy um, with all of you who have participated and who have given us good questions here tonight. Um, that's what we need to be doing. That's what we need to be asking as we go further. Um, I don't know what else to cover with you all. Um, I mean, you really asked some really good questions here tonight, and they're happening. Why does America act like it's free of blame when they kept slavery longer than any other country? Well, here's the thing. It is arguable that they kept it longer because we do have Eastern slave trade. But I will say this. They do act as if they are free of blame because they gave themselves an out. They gave themselves an out, right? Whenever we talk about slavery, it always makes me laugh because it's such foolery. They always say, well, the founding fathers really didn't want slavery. And they go back to the Declaration of Independence, right? And they talk about how all men, right? But they weren't talking about blacks as men and as women. But they give themselves the out of saying, well, we hadn't inputted it yet, but we have a system of government that allowed us to free them. They forget that it took a war, that it took bloodshed, that it took lynchings, murders, that it took marching, assassinations, right? That's always left out. But let's give ourselves the out with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Let's say that we always wanted it. It just took time to get it. And that's a lie. It's a fallacy. Facts are stubborn and they are what they are. And the fact is, they had to be forced. They had to be forced. And that's the truth. So even though they didn't let slavery go. And we're going to have to get into that situation. Time doesn't permit me to do it tonight, but we're going to have to get into that situation where we go through the Declaration of Independence. Because I think a lot of people, we know of it, but have we really ever read it? And when you read it, and you understand that they're condemning King George for freeing slaves, for saying that slavery should be outlawed, because they feel as if when you do that, you've allowed all of these slaves over here to live and grow and have families. They will outnumber us. You are putting us in danger. That is in the Declaration of Independence. So I want you to really understand what this is about. Have you seen the movie? I've watched Roots many times, and I will tell you that Roots, in its facts of how slavery happened, touches on a lot of truth. But I would ask you to consider this, and this is a lot of people don't know this, is that Alex Haley was actually sued for Roots because it wasn't really a story that was his. He took that story. Right? I do believe that I should. that I got to do something when we go into the Declaration of Independence and we really look at, and even some of these amendments, right? Even some of these amendments. I think that once we do that, we will have a better understanding of really what this was about. Because I think that a lot of times we kind of go over it. We just taught it in school, little parts of it, right? And so we need to do better about making sure what's going on. But yeah, you know, the whole thing with Alex Haley is he was accused by a man. It was actually an author who had written a novel before Roots called The African. And so um, there are parts of Alex Haley's Roots that what's that guy's name? Corlander. That's his last name. I can't remember his first name. Corlander wrote a book called The African. Alex Haley went and took parts of that book. It was written by a white guy. Corlander was a white guy. Haley took parts of that book and started putting it in his writing for Roots. And he was sued for it. Yep. And he settled that case out of court. A lot of people don't know that for what he did. So Roots has elements of truth, but yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, yes, he got sued. Do you see us getting reparations in our generation? I think we will get some sort of reparation, because what's going to happen is soon and very soon, the people in power who have been in power since the beginning of this country will not be fully in power, and they will have to find some way, and I'm going to say this very honestly, to pacify the ever increasing people of color in this country. So something probably will happen before it's too many of us, but it will happen. Oh yeah, he got sued. Yes. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great session. I hope you got something from it. I'm here every Thursday, God willing. I will be back here next Thursday to do another Erudition Interactive Black History and Knowledge session. Please do me a favor. I did not put my banner on, and I apologize, and my family's probably going to get mad that I did not do that. But if you want to help Erudition out any kind of way with our cameras, the things that we get, book studies material, things that we do, we're trying to Tina's on daily talking about when she comes on Monday. Please take the time to donate to the Erudition Network. Help us to grow this network to reach more people. If you can't financially help us, do us at least a favor of sharing this program and the other programs that we have on, and encourage people to watch so that we can all grow together. This is important. It is very important, because we need to know who we are as we go forward in this country and in this world. So that you can donate to us through our Cash App, the Erudition. Just look for the Erudition Network. You will see the Erudition symbol that's sitting kind of like to the side of me right here. You will see that symbol and you'll know you're in the right place. Anything and everything is appreciated, and I do appreciate if you do. But also share, like, subscribe, grow our network on other social media platforms. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna thank you all again. I bought the series in the 70s to educate my grands. Not a bad series, but just remember the other history part of it. Thank you, Eric. Just a reminder, Israel is a terrorist state. But oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Please spread the words. And join us on Mondays and on Wednesdays. My wife and the boys are on with their shows also. All right, let me get out of here. Thank you all. Let me get my banner and everything. Thank you, Tony. Good to see you, man. Need to come on one of these days, man. We get on here, we talk about some things. All right, let me get on out. Thank you again. Be blessed, and we'll see you the next time on the Erudition Network.